anyone's, like we're being recorded, right? Is that correct? This is going to be online. I don't know if anyone's actually had Paul Schill, Eric's book. Obviously, this entire conference is based on the premises of this book, but this is Cryptoeconomics by Eric Bosskill. I wanted to show this specifically because this book has been in like the topics, like even though this book was launched today, I've already read it. It's been online for a lot of the topics have been online for quite a while. It's been very influential in how I view this system that is Bitcoin. So influential that I have a token launch that I would like to launch here, a token of appreciation. Eric, thank you. For a second. So, what I'm going to get into, obviously, is decentralized mining, but what I do for a living is called Bitcoin mines. When I was trying to come up with a brand, sort of a name for my products, you know, I was trying to think of something clever. So I have these hats that promote my product. My product name is Home. Home, of course, is the name for electrical resistance. The inspiration behind this name was actually Eric's work. The central premise of this conference is the axiom of resistance. That is the central assumption that we've all accepted in that, Bitcoin mining, we can resist as a whole censorship to our system. It's something that Eric talked about earlier today. It's not provable, but it is something that I personally believe that, I wouldn't be here building a business on Bitcoin mining if I didn't believe that it was something that was sustainable. So, very influential. So,
wow, I'm glad I did. You named that company for that. That's really cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think I won the Proof of Travel Award coming all the way from Canada, so pretty proud of that. All right, so I'm going to talk about mining decentralization. By no means am I an authority on this matter. I wouldn't represent myself that way. What I want to do is give you guys a bit of, a flavor to this topic, a bit of perspective. If anyone ever approaches you and pretends to be an expert on Bitcoin mining decentralization, I would walk away. And if I ever start taking out and shoot me or something, because as we talked about earlier, we never really know if mining is centralized or not. If the centralized majority decides to hide that fact, it's quite easy to hide, right? So, all this talk about, especially within shitcoins and tokens, and there's a lot of marketing hype around the word decentralization. It's lost value. So, it's beware of anyone sort of promoting based on that term. Yeah. So I'm going to just give some flavor to this, sort of talking about the needs that maybe the pressures, and a lot of what I'm talking about in my talk here, Eric's actually already touched on, which is another credit to his work and how it's influenced me, because I didn't actually collude with Eric, and I'm going to talk about some topics he already discussed, such as the redundancy. But I want to give a bit of flavor on the needs that sort of drive decentralization, and talk about maybe in a sense how my business, upstream data, and what we do, sort of solves a certain need. And then of course talk a little bit about risks to mining in general and what I think possibly the future of mining, how it's trending. So I'm going to get a little speculative, maybe not as vigorous as Eric has been. So my background, you can hit the slide. You can see me. My background, so I'm an engineer, so I'm going to give you a bit of an engineering perspective here. I started my business upstream data when I learned about Bitcoin in 2016. So I'm an oil field engineer, that's what I've done my whole career. And pretty much, I think it must have been 2 days after learning about Bitcoin, I saw it as a solution to waste gas in oil field. So I'm going to sort of relate to that experience as I go through this, cover some of the stuff we're going to talk about. But what I do for a living now is I design Bitcoin mines. They're all generally pretty small. I'm a little different, like my business is a bit different than your typical big miner you hear about, especially if you're paying attention to the mining scene. Like there's a lot of well-financed big miners coming to North America with the goal of decentralizing mining and like. But I still do it a lot differently. Our mines are generally pretty small. I'm not going to show my products, but I'm going to show you just one example of them. And we basically deploy them in the well field. That's all I focus on. That's like our niche is the well field. That's my expertise. Particularly if you're not quite, because I'm not going to get into the whole economics of the business of what we do. If you just think of like flare gas, that's what I'm talking about, right? Like you deploy flare gas, not just flare gas, but vented sources of methane, stranded gas and the like. So that's what I do, and that's the perspective I'm bringing. So a lot of centralization, we've sort of already defined this, right? Like, we talk about in the whole, I guess, economy of Bitcoin and altcoins. People give different perspectives on centralization, but in the context of this talk, I'm just talking about centralization of mining that is achieving 50% plus hash power. And of course, the powers that you have are certain. If I gain 50% hash power, I can tax the entire economy up to 100%. I can mine exclusively, get all the rewards, and I can block everyone's transactions. So we talked a lot about that already. And then of course, decentralization is the opposite of that. Miners, like we're doing today, in the honeymoon phase, sharing rewards. So there's certain pressures, or I guess I have another slide. So what's the big deal about mining centralization? Like I just said, the taxation. You can attempt to double spend, like Eric just mentioned. You can only attempt to double spend. Obviously, if you're participating as a merchant, you have some means of defense against that is by requiring more confirmations and waiting more time, which is incurring more costs. But there are defense mechanisms against certain mining attacks. So some of this is redundant, like centralization of mining. Of course, it's easy to hide. So there's always some flavor. There's always some aspect of uncertainty in the system. And I think it's important as stakeholders in the system to understand that at any given time, the sensor might reveal himself. It's not that difficult to acquire 50% hash power. There's plenty of individuals on the planet that have the capital to go buy out all the big firms. And especially when you hear these narratives that in like North America where they're deploying 200 megawatt mines, like these are the plans in Texas and like, it doesn't take much to buy those companies out. It doesn't take much for a state sponsor to require licensing, pool licensing, and all kinds of things to sort of go out those mines. So it really just comes down to nothing's ever certain in Bitcoin. There's always some level of uncertainty, but it's just important to be aware of that at all times. So Eric sort of describes it, I guess, as cooling pressures as he just talked about. I'm gonna get into there's certain centralizing pressures that cause mining to generally accumulate and you get few large miners. So these are sort of economic pressures, but there's also decentralizing pressures, which I can relate to. I think the biggest one, like on the top of my list here, what centralizes Bitcoin mining is subsidies. And particularly, I'm thinking of financing. I know of very few miners. There are exceptions, of course, like Bitmain might be one of them. The guys that are making equipment who have huge advantages, but I know of very few miners who can actually take the reward they earn mining, reinvest it into a mine, and accumulate more Bitcoin than they started with. It's very, very difficult. And that's why I think you see all these big projects, like they're all heavily financed. Financing isn't necessarily a subsidy on its own, but the system that we currently operate in, where money is accumulated through seigniorage to, I'm not an expert on some of the stuff Eric was talking about, but to central banking, to the state, and then it's loaned out at low cost to investment banks and through I guess a hierarchy of I don't know let's say, privilege, I guess. Because it's easy money, it's sort of a taxation on the many, and it ends up being distributed to a few. And that centralizing pressure sort of exists in any market that we see today. That's why we see the centralization of wealth, of course, it's easy money printing. But that is something that we're seeing in mining, like these big mines that are going up are well financed, and this is easy money. So for little guys to compete against that, you almost have to get financing. It's very difficult to compete against subsidies. So that's probably the biggest centralizing pressure. And then of course there's some other stuff, like again, we won't be touching on a lot of this today, but so I'll just blow through it. But economies of scale, if you deploy $1 million in a single location, your unit costs are lower, your labor costs are lower, you have just a more efficient project. If you do what I do, and take $1 million and build 10, 20, or however many little Bitcoin mines and put them all over the country, there's a lot more costs doing that, and you end up getting less hash rate and a longer payout. But when I get into the next slide, there's certain benefits that offset that cost, more decentralizing pressures in life. So, but of course, predictable, frequent rewards. The bigger your hash power is, the more frequently you get paid out, the more predictable that payout is. So of course, you know when you're getting income, if you know when you're getting paid, you make better decisions, and you just generally have a more efficient operation. And so little miners don't have that luxury. Secure assets, like this is one that's very relevant to my business. I deploy these little mines all over the place. They're in the middle of nowhere, like there's no security. Not at least physical presence, like there's no security guard. Maybe tell a little story about some interesting things that have happened with our stuff, but when you build out a huge mine, you have that. Usually you have some, and if I put a 50 megawatt mine in Texas, I'm going to have probably 24/7 staff there. At least one guy sleeping, watching monitors or something, right? And it's not just security against theft, it's security against environmental damage. Everything is a little better when you're doing it in a centralized way. And then of course, more latency. Tomo, you asked the question earlier. I'm not going to get into this. This is a really fascinating subject. COH, center of hash concept. Anyone ever heard of center of hash? This will point out the real hardcore guys. Nobody? Okay. Yeah. There's this. I won't get into this too much. I think his name is Drew Bansal, and maybe a couple other fellows talk about this. You're asking about like mining on the moon and some of the issues with the latency problem. They wrote a really interesting, and I recommend you all Google this and find the article. He wrote an interesting idea that if you're mining on Mars, and obviously Mars is going to rotate around the sun, and the latency between Earth changes. He talked about the effect of the center of hash power, and one way to look at it is consider like the center of mass. I won't get too much in detail on it, but basically, if you had 50% hash power on the moon or Mars, and 50% on Earth, the center of hash is like the center of mass, and it's right in between because it's 50-50. And then effectively, what would happen is you get longer reworks because based on the time, the block time's only 10 minutes, so if it takes an hour to propagate, a bunch of blocks, you'll end up getting more reworks. But I think the root answer to what your question was, if you're mining on the moon with greater latency, you end up just having your work that's done is just less efficient by whatever percent latency difference there is. I think that's the core of that whole subject. So anyway, lower latency is a benefit to miners. We're all on Earth though, so the latency is very tiny. So the benefit of a centralized big miner based on center of hash and just having a better network connectivity is pretty minimal, but you get more scale shares and more scale blocks, so it is an advantage, but not a significant one, I don't think. And obviously, big mines, right? So the next one. So I mean, here's a shill for my own business. We deploy these little boxes and little mines. We get one in Texas or in Michigan. I didn't even know they had oil and gas in Michigan. For those of you not familiar with North American markets, I apologize. Decentralized. But that's basically where we operate right now. Texas, Michigan, we're based out of Canada, so we're up in Canada. So in terms of, you know, the decentralizing pressures, the number one, there's a lot of pressures I think that are generally pushed towards decentralization of mining, distribution of decision-making in mining, so hash power ownership. I think the biggest one is competition. I think the best example I can think of for competition and how that decentralizes mining is, think about Bitmain, who's been just dominant in this space. They lost a couple of their really top engineers to Watts Miner, who had started Watts Miner. For those of you who pay attention to mining, Watts Miner is an excellent product, as good as Bitmain's, very competitive anyway. I don't know why, they left Bitmain, but you want to presume it was greed, right? It was the desire to benefit oneself, and they said, hey, we can just go do this as good or better and benefit, right? It's a very natural tendency for competition to split businesses. I think is the opposite of a subsidy, right? A subsidy has a tendency for big businesses to gobble up better businesses that are smaller than them, whereas competition is the opposite effect. And that's just generally, even in my own industry, which we're one of the pioneers and maybe the first to really do it on waste gas. Maybe not, I'm not sure, but I'm seeing competition sprout up like crazy. It's actually a really good thing. It's bringing credibility to the whole concept of Bitcoin or oil field. So the other, another huge aspect of, economic pressure that pushes for decentralized mining is energy obviously is already distributed, right? Renewables obviously are a bit of a meme and growing meme in Bitcoin mining. Wind and solar and how Bitcoin mining curtails, waste, or the curtailment of the waste in wind and solar can't be used to mine Bitcoin. Wind and solar is already well distributed, whether or not that's going to be a big part of the mining equation in the next 10, 20 years, I'm not too sure about yet, but even other energy sources are well distributed. Even if you're not like in oil and gas, let's say, producing nation. I was told Vietnam actually has a little bit offshore. But even if you're not, the nice thing about fossil fuels, climate change stuff aside, it's transportable, right? So it's well distributed. So when I finish this talk, I'm sort of going to be talking about the commoditization of ASICs and how ASICs are getting cheaper, and that's a really good thing for mining decentralization, because the cheaper the hardware is, the lower the cost of entry. You don't have to use the newest hardware. I don't use any new hardware in my mines. I use only exclusively old stuff. There's a lot of good reasons for that I won't get into, but because energy is already distributed, and the access to start mining is that much easier because this hardware goes down, the hardware cost is decreasing over time due to commoditization, then it's more of a decentralizing pressure. I'll skip the increasing difficulty one, it's more related to competition. Mining satisfies a need, so basically the need we satisfy as a business, just to relate back to what we do, is we go after reliability guys. So gas, that site right there is the nicest site I'm on. It makes us look nice and symmetrical, very nice picture, but that site is an oil well that was shut in, and they couldn't produce it because the regulators told them to shut that well in because you're venting, just releasing gas, methane into the atmosphere, right? And they're not allowed to do that, and they had no other options. They weren't actually allowed to put a flare in because it's close to a house. So we were their only option, or they would have had to abandon that well site. So what we ended up doing is making producers more efficient, but we use mining as a way to satisfy a need, and I think, I'm going to finish this talk as well on what I think is going to be an increase in home mining in the future. And you think about, I know plenty of guys that are mining at home, and they know, they're well aware that it's not exactly a good decision for them just straight up on if you think about it from, I could buy Bitcoin on Coinbase versus I could buy the miner and mine on the high cost of electricity. But for them, the benefit is the idea that they're getting relatively anonymous, KYC-free Bitcoins, and that they have a personal preference to accept a premium on those coins, right? So there's this need for, say like privacy and anonymous coins that help drive mining distribution. And maybe not significant today, or mining and hobby mining is a really big thing, but I think it's will become a very big thing. So touch on that at the end. I don't know, I was thinking later, I'm not sure if I labeled this slide optimally, but as a miner and anyone really a stakeholder in the system, we're talking about centralization of mining, risks. I personally don't worry at all about mining centralization as a business owner. There's not a lot I can do that I'm not already doing to prevent mining centralization, and that is, of course, trying to increase my hash power. Every day I'm trying to sell more mines, either deploy more mines with my own business or sell them to my customers. And I'm already trying to maximize my hash power, which is all a miner can really do to resist censorship, is to increase the cost of censorship. That's all a miner can do. So that's already a natural desire by every miner out there to profit, make it costly to overcome 50%. But I'm worried about other risks, local risks, like we talked about jurisdictional risks. And I'm going to follow this up with the whole idea that if you can't hide, like you can't hide your Bitcoin mine, you can't hide the fact that you're mining, then certainly at a jurisdictional level, you are a target. You put up a 200 megawatt mining facility, you have no chance to hide that. There's a lot of heat, a lot of noise, a lot of power to consume. There's no way in hell you're going to build a mine on the black market. Okay? You're not going to build a mine freely with that power. So impose you might, a lot of the narrative in North America right now is that you see it in PR, that like these big miners are saying, you got to decentralize mining from China, right? A lot of mining is done in China. But, that might be good for resisting a Chinese jurisdictional attacker, but it doesn't do much for anybody locally in North America, any jurisdiction, like state that might make you mine on a state rule or something, bring about a mining license. But, like miners have different sort of, I guess, just levels of risk levels. I'm not worried about, I am worried about jurisdictional. I have to deal with oil and gas regulators. I'm slightly worried that they might maybe tax me greater than, maybe they just won't like what we're doing. We already have trouble getting, traditional services, and they discriminate against miners anyway. And we've seen already big time utility discrimination against miners. If you guys follow mining, you know that in Quebec, in North America, they had a big moratorium. They weren't allowing new miners to enter the market for no good reason, even though it was profitable for the state. They just said, we're putting a halt on this. In Washington, you can Google, there's headlines all over the place of utilities saying, like, we're jacking the prices up, right? I have a good example, not exactly a utility, but one of the first oil and gas producers that I put our Bitcoin mine on their site. It was actually my prototype mine. The local guy that I knew thought it was brilliant. He's like, this is going to solve this problem. He had to put a compressor in. His other choice was to put a compressor in, meaning like a big engine to compress the gas and sell it, which had no payout. And I offered him to take, if he just powered my mine, just gave the gas for free to get rid of his gas problem. It was perfect, like for him, that's all he wanted, to get rid of his gas problem without suffering any cost. And I actually ate that cost, tying it in, because I was trying to get established. And anyway, about 3 months later, management found out that this is a publicly traded company. So management found out that they had a Bitcoin miner on their site. This was in early 2017, before the pump too. And it was still, there's a huge difference in perception globally, even in Canada right now. It's improved a lot in the oil field, but at this time, they didn't want a Bitcoin miner on their site. So we we had an informal agreement, so then they said, all right, you can stay because you made an agreement with our employee, but we're charging you access costs, road allowance, you have to be escorted by our site operator, a bunch of just really costly asks. So I just picked up and did it. No, why would I do that? So I just moved to the next site. They had they discriminated against me as a minor. But funny enough, last month, it took me a year and a half, they bought 2 mines out of us. So the narrative has changed like dramatically in the oil field. And part of that is education, doing this kind of thing, and getting the word out there. And the fact that other guys are doing it too in competition, it just brings more like credibility to Bitcoin. And that's always been one of my priorities, been to try to educate the oil field and bring credibility to this space, because this is what has been lacking. When I deploy Bitcoin mine, I'm not worried about the global threat, which is the threat to everybody here, which is the centralization of mining. I'm worried about like global threats, people stealing my Bitcoin mines that I deploy. My asset especially, even if it's my customer's asset, I don't want them to lose their investment. So I do what I can to resist that risk, the risk of theft, the risk of vandalism, and environment. I've suffered all three. Now, no one's stolen anything in my Bitcoin mine, but 2 weeks ago they stole the battery out of my engine. Okay? There's people, these particular types are tend to be like meth addicts. It's a bit of a problem in some parts of Canada. And they go out and steal copper, like they'll steal whatever they can, I guess to get their fix. And batteries, you can sell an engine battery, like it's basically like a truck or car battery, it's a truck battery. It's worth a decent amount of, probably a hit of cement in it, or meth or something, but they go around stealing that, and so I'm worried about that. I haven't had that risk if they've stolen other stuff like batteries and stuff, so it's something that's more relevant than worrying about China censoring my hash power. I have bigger fish to fry, at least as it relates to me. Vandalism, I haven't had any vandalism, but I've had site damage. People backing trucks up into our mines. Like, these are things that I'm worried about. I'm not worried about denial of services acts, not from a business standpoint. And then of course environments, like we're putting these like little cubes in the middle of nowhere. I made a mistake this year. It's my first time in this cube, and I had so much going on, I forgot to put a suitable filter in for winter. And I had a couple cubes, I had 2 that I pulled in a bunch of snow and damaged some S9s. And that's an example of why I use S9s and not like S17 for $2,000 a pop, like S9s and whatever. They're a commodity, they literally are a commodity. And that's where mining is heading. It's heading into a commoditized era. And that's very, very beneficial. So, next one, So, these are the risks that every miner faces, like local, jurisdictional, global. I don't think there's much you can do aside from just trying to profit to mitigate the global risk. But in terms of like deploying a big mine, when you deploy a big mine, you completely lose the ability to be visible. And look at these guys, like how do they avoid the threat? Like they stay hidden. That is the right way to do things. Like the wrong way to do things is doing what I'm doing and telling everyone that I'm Bitcoin miners. It paints a target on my business and on myself for hackers, right? For whatever. If you can mine covertly, if you can stay under the radar, and we talk about OPSEC and Bitcoin, there's no good reason aside from here trying to educate like I am. And I'm willing to take risks to educate like many of you are. There's not really any good reason to announce it. So being able to be mined covertly is certainly going to be, in terms of the local risk, like the risk of theft, like I'm not going to tell people where I put my mines. They might be able to figure it out, but I'm not going to tell them. I don't want people to go try to take them from me, right? I'm a white market business. I have to comply with every regulation and tax code. So I'm hoping the regulators don't clamp down on us, like, or make it more difficult for us, but that's the choice I've made. I know personally, we actually didn't sell mines to these guys, but I know guys in the oil field mining off their waste gas who built their own mine, just got a local electrician as to build a mine. It's not hard to do. And they're mining what I presume to be on the black market. I don't think they're claiming royalties on the gas, or probably not paying taxes on it, but that's just speculation. So I mean, those guys are, they're taking a big risk if they are doing that, but they also, if they stay hidden, they can't be just, rule of law doesn't actually mean anything to them, as we talked about. So I'm an engineer, and like when you design something, you're not designing for a steady state. Like for example, when you design a bridge, you might get an average over the year, like 50 cars on that bridge, 100 people. But you don't design a bridge to withstand 50 cars and 100 people plus a little extra. You think about what are the upset conditions, like maybe a mass protest, maybe 10,000 people pile on that bridge, and a bunch of cars, bumper to bumper. You don't want that bridge to collapse, right? So the Bitcoin must be designed for the upset condition, not for the steady state to be, to meet the axial resistance for starting. I personally believe it does, but it's hard to say. We don't know, as he actually states. But when it comes to the security of the system, being able to be covert is the only way really to maximally avoid some of the censorship. There's certain things, like as a Bitcoin mine designer, while it's not something I don't suffer costs to make my mines more hidden. I mean, I do actually. Like the ones I showed you, I put graphics on them, so I'm promoting the business. Generally, when I show people that picture, but oftentimes I won't put the graphics on the mines because I don't want. It's better to just have the building as a discrete, another engine building, right? Like something no one's going to bother trying to tamper with. But it just comes down to understanding what the risks are. Not possibly designed to be any of those. Yeah, so I'm almost done. My last slide, I believe. So this is purely speculative, like talking about this stuff, but I think that the future of mining decentralization looks very bright. When I talk about ASICs, like computers are getting cheaper, the time it takes for them to like double efficiency is getting longer. I mean, like I said, I'm not buying any new hardware, I'm just buying old S9s and firing them up, and they might damage the storage or whatever, they still make us money. And it's a preference based on the risks that I deal with. So commoditization is good though when it comes to, it lowers the barrier of entry. So you participants, like you guys might want to start mining, you don't have to go buy a $2,000 computer. It might be worthwhile to buy something older. And when you consider the fact that like Bitcoin ends up being a tool for arbitrage, when you have a cheap power source, like I've identified and that we go after, and now I see more competition for that power source, eventually my prices are going to go up, right? That low-hanging fruit is going to be picked clean, and I'm going to have to move up the branch. And then, capital that's misallocated in a high cost, whatever it could be, any business that shouldn't have investors in it are going to take that capital and move it into these lower hanging fruit of Bitcoin mining. You get this net arbitrage effect. And so, the future of, I think the future of mining is going to get more and more difficult for everybody who's mining. And that just opens the door it makes it easier to mine at home. Home mining and like hobby mining has already been written off by like the majority of people you talk to. I think it's a huge misconception. The concept that home mining is dead. I think that's a misconception. I don't think home mining ever lived. I think when Bitcoin started, it was immediately in a discovery phase. It wasn't a mature market at all.
I would argue that a lot of the miners at that time weren't making any money because there was no price. So it was very highly speculative. It was a discovery phase, and I would argue that home mining never really was a thing. And based on the arbitrage mechanism I described, the lower barrier to entry, the need for anonymous coins, and maybe some other reasons I haven't thought of, and you guys might understand better, I think we're going to see a rise of hobby mines. I was talking with a gentleman here earlier who was asking me about getting into Bitcoin mining, and I just happened to talk about the fact that, like, if we enter a bull market right now, like, a lot of guys are selling their S9s, like their older equipment. We're buying them up because we need them, but a lot of guys are selling them or scrapping them, and they don't think they're going to be profitable anymore. But if you enter a Bitcoin price run and it starts, getting a little crazy like it did in 2017, people are going to be pulling these S9s out of the garbage and the S7s and plugging them in. And if you can get them for practically nothing, which you will be able to, plug it into your garage. That's how I started mining. I mined at a loss to learn about the system, and throw it down the garage and make a tiny profit. But hey, you're making profit, right? So I see it as I think it's going to be a big part of the future, especially if there's a crackdown on mining. How better to hide the fact that you're a miner by just doing it at home at small scale? If that actually grows to anything substantial, we'll watch out. The last thought I'll leave you on, I find it's always fun to think about future bull trades, especially for all investors in this space. I don't see a black market as we described. I don't see it as a bad thing. It's just a free market. And I'm pretty much done. So yeah.
We do have time for one question.
Yeah, I'm done. So hopefully.
Hi, I don't know the field, but I would like to clarify two of the threats that you put on the slide. First thing, how come that capex are decreasing? If ASICs are becoming a commodity, but the major price of mining is electricity. Is electricity dropping everywhere because now it's convenient, or is the price of Bitcoin that now makes convenient too? Second stuff, you suggested that amateur miners will grow because they like to have their own Bitcoin, etc. This is something that will grow because they love Bitcoins of their own, despite the fact that they will lose money producing it, because mining, as far as I read, is a market of numbers. Unless you have X ASICs, you pay the electricity 0.08, you are out of the market when the price of Bitcoin is around 7.
All right, the first question, I think you were just asking, like, is the commoditization of ASICs reducing the barrier of entry? Basically, like, you look at, like, five years ago, if you look at, or even a couple years ago, if you look at, if you had $1 million and you're going to invest in a Bitcoin mine, like 90% of that capital would be just your upfront cost. And then the electricity was still significant, especially like a couple years, like 5 years ago, we were entering the industrial era. But the electricity was not the primary consideration of the investment. It was the ASICs. Like, ASICs have peaked at $20,000 a pop, like in very early days. As they commoditize, of course, that same let's say $1 million of capital can now buy more ASICs at a lower all-in cost and have more power generated. And so you end up having more electricity burn. Yeah, the allocation of capital is more towards the operating costs as opposed to upfront capital. So I think I'm not sure if I answered your first question, but yeah. And then I think you're asking about why would, like, hobby miners, like, pay the premium? Why why would they mine at a loss? The answer is like, not everybody accepts, for example, like, when you don't sell your Bitcoin at the Coinbase price, it's because you have a higher value on your coin, it's a higher preference for your price, right? People have this preference, the preference differ for everybody. So, value is subjective, and basically, I think that some people value getting coins that no one can track, and they're willing to pay a premium on that. But I think there's literally just an incentive to profit. It had nothing to do with like premium on anonymous coins and whatnot. Just an incentive to profit will make home mining like an actual thing. Well, I don't think there's a huge market of people, putting a premium on anonymous coins is probably pretty small. I use it more as an example. But I think like the increase in home mining, and it's not going to be like tomorrow. It's going to be in 5, 10 years when things get really commoditized. But I do think, and energy prices get really competitive. But yeah, I think that home mining, it's just going to be driven like all mining. It's profit. It's a seeking profit. It's nothing to do with anonymity. It's more just I want to make a quick profit.